Okay. Call the Finance and Personnel Committee together. It's 1 p.m. We have our first agenda item is the adoption of the August 22nd, 2019 minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, moving right along to agenda item number 3, Superintendent's Report. Russ?
Average daily population, Rappahannock with 20 at 6%, Shenandoah County with 123 at 37%, and Warren County with 186 at 57%. Total member jurisdiction ADP is 329. We still have one contract bed with Prince William County. We have 62 with Page County and 98 with Culpeper County. The Culpeper County, again, with their contract, they're paying for 100 whether they use them or not, but that's the actual number that we have in the facility. Total facility ADP is 490.
So is that a monthly average or?
That is that's the monthly average daily population.
Good question.
Let's see, vacancies, 27 officer vacancies. This includes the 8 positions held for vacancy savings, and we still have 1 LPN vacancy. Facility grounds and maintenance. The asphalt maintenance has started on September 4th with crack filling, resealing, and striping of the visitor and staff parking lots. The remainder of the paved areas on the site will be completed on September 28th and 29th, which is this weekend. Recruitment and retention. We had 1 officer begin on September 23rd. We have another one scheduled for October 7th. And we have another facilities assistant position being filled on September 30th.
Last month you said we had 7 officers in background.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like we did pick up 7.
We did, but we lost a couple as well.
Okay.
So, let's see. There's 1 jail officer currently in background. We have several others that have stated they're completing their applications for submission as well, is what I'm being told by HR. Inmate Programs and Services, on August 29th, the McShin Foundation hosted their Virginia Rehabilitation and Recovery Summit at the Mountain Home Bed and Breakfast here in Warren County. The event was an opportunity for McShin to showcase and celebrate the nearly 1-year anniversary of the intensive substance abuse program in place here at RSW. There have been 22 RSW inmates who have received scholarships from the program. They hand out 23, and RSW received 22 of the 23. Riverside received 1. So I was unable to attend the event. I think Mr. Stanley attended and Mr. Murray and a couple other staff from here, and they seemed like it was a very positive event. A lot of the people that received scholarships were able to get up and actually speak to the crowd and talk about their experience and being able to leave incarceration here, going down to the McShin Foundation and continue their rehabilitation program and actually being employed and moving on with their lives hopefully in a positive way. So we look forward to hopefully have another successful year to continue that program here. Tomorrow, staff will be attending the World of Works Expo at Shenandoah University. It looks like instead of being 2 days, it's going to be 1 day this year, and that'll be showcasing 7th graders from Clark, Frederick, Page, Rappahannock, Shenandoah, Warren, and the city of Winchester. So they're going to have a busy day tomorrow with a lot of 7th graders. But it's always a good event, and we're really glad to be part of that. Again, during this month, we've provided workforce crews to all 3 member jurisdictions. We've got some photos here of some of the work that's been completed. And that's it.
Okay, Stephanie, financial report.
Just over $516,000 was received from the Compensation Board in August for the July 2019 salaries and benefits reimbursement, of which just over $277,000 was for vacancy savings, both for July and the total for the year for the 8 positions that we hold vacant. Contract bed rental billing for August was $88,000 for Culpeper, $75,000 for Page, and $1,500 for Prince William. August is just over 16% of the way through the year. Expenditures are at just over 13% used, and revenue is at not quite 19% realized. Robinson Farmer Cox was on site to conduct our FY19 audit on September 18th and 19th, and everything went well, and they told me that they should have all their reports done by November.
So in the monthly stats sheet, The revenue shown for the contract bed rental shows 166,000 for August, but nothing for July.
Because July was billed in August. So what I've reflected was received in August is for
So when
July.
we closed out 19, you accrued that. So we'll.
Yeah, what
I
was
guess when we
received in
get
July.
when we get to June, it'll be a double bump.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Vote.
Ted?
I believe that you all had something in your packet,
Sir.
but I've got it up, slightly updated. I mean, it's really very much the same format, but I think it's just a little more timely with the market. Sorry. Yellow. Yellow.
Hey, Dave.
So we had spent, is there enough going down there here? Got plenty. I gotta save a few, I guess, for the next meeting, right? We had spent a decent amount of time on this, on the call, but wanted to, for this group, walk through it again. We can go through it relatively quickly, but not a lot has changed. Market interest rates have moved around a little bit, but the concept in and of itself is still very much the same. It's the 2012A VRA bonds, refinancing those bonds that are callable. They can't be taken from the current bondholders until November 1 of 2022. And we're talking about refunding the bonds that mature from 23 to 42. It's about $38 million worth of the debt. We're not extending the debt, we're not shortening the debt. And we will have a few maturities on the 2012s that remain in place. The ones that mature on 11/1 of 19, 20, 21, and 22. No problem. The refunding will pick up the bonds that start maturing 23 and beyond. And so if this all happens, we'll be able to work with Stephanie, get a new debt service schedule for the remaining 2012s and the new debt schedule for what might be called the 19s, and it'll all work fine. All right. And y'all will remember this is going to be done, if we do it on a taxable basis, because this is an advanced refunding, we can't do it on a tax exempt basis. According to VRA, all other terms, conditions, requirements will remain the same. Nothing new is being introduced to the loan agreements, nothing is being removed. It should be neutral as it relates to those types of business items. And I think Jesse, they're planning to document this under basically the same documents that they had. Jesse Bausch is here from Sam Anderson.
Yeah, they have, they kind of update their pool documents every year or so as sort of market things change, and so there'll be some changes related to that kind of global stuff. But all the substantive stuff from that 2012 deal is gonna just follow forward into it'll probably be amended and restated kind of financing documents or something like that, rather than substantive changes to anything there.
Okay. We do, you all might remember, those of you that were here in 2012, we did fund a debt service reserve fund from bond monies when we did this transaction, and that's essentially money that is set aside, specifically dedicated to make payments on the bonds for about a year if there ever were a problem or a difficulty. That will remain outstanding. It might have to get downsized a little bit, but we can work through that. It's really not gonna change that in any fundamental way. And remember, if that debt service reserve fund is never used, you're earning interest on it, and it's used to make the last year's payment. So it's yours, it's just gotta stay intact until the final payment.
So it probably can't be reduced until we get through to 23, right?
Now, we'll, if you flip to page 2, we will start recognizing savings in the current fiscal year 20, because the interest expense on all the old, longer dated debt is gonna come down. So, page 2 is current market as of the 24th, just a couple days ago. And this was the one, Evan, I referenced verbally with your board the other night. So we are currently estimating in what we call gross savings over the remaining life of the loan, about $8.7 million of savings. On average, it's about $365,000 per year. On the left-hand side in that green box of the savings, that's the statistics, if you will. It's about a 17% present value savings. And you'll notice on line 2, we're paying off $37.9 million of existing bonds. In order to do that, we've got to cover or issue, under these estimates, about $41.9 million. That is because, yes, we have some cost of issuance built into this, but also because that escrow, if you look in that bottom left corner, that escrow, when we close these 19 bonds, money will go into this dedicated escrow for RSW. And it will make the payments on the bonds we're refunding between closing and November 1 of 2022. The bondholders that own those 2012s right now are entitled to that. We can't change that. The average coupon or interest rate on the bonds in the escrow is a 4.85%. We can invest that escrow money, but we can only invest it in treasury type securities. And those are only yielding around a 158, so it's inefficient, and so that is a big driver as to why we're putting a little more money in the escrow to make it work. Therefore, why are we, we're issuing basically $4 million of additional principal to pay off the old bonds, and it's partly because of cost of issuance, but largely because of the escrow, and the whole reason this works is because rates are low, and so you get the benefit of the low rates on your debt service for the next 20-some years, but you also have this escrow that isn't as efficient as you might like it to be. But when we look at that far right-hand column, it's taking all of that into account. So when we say, look, if this were the final numbers, you will get $365,000 a year of reduced debt service payments, including all the associated costs and that escrow. So it's quote-unquote net savings, if you want to describe it that way.
So the 485 is known, not
It is
floating.
known, because that is the 2012s that will be in the escrow, so that isn't going to change.
And the 1584 could float up.
Could float up, right?
Okay.
And if it floats up, that means your
Not as well.
borrowing is floating up, but it doesn't always move that way. Because the escrow is that 3 years, right? Approximately 3 years. And the loan is 23 years, so it won't, the rates don't always move in lockstep that way. But yes, that's generally true. The 158 is still subject to movement. The 485 is not.
But it's not, but the escrow rate itself, the escrow rate is gonna lock when we close.
Yes,
It's not gonna.
it'll float
Right.
between now
Right,
and,
right.
and November, but
So the only way the savings could be less is if the earnings on the escrow is less, which it would be.
or the borrowing rate on the bond.
When it actually closes.
Correct. So let's talk about the mechanics. VRA is selling their bonds on October 30th. That is the date that we will lock in the borrowing rates, right, for the 23 years. And that's also the day that, Jesse, VRA will subscribe for slugs.
I think they generally do that on that day, but I'm not positive.
Slugs are, that's an acronym for state and local government securities. That is the treasury investment that the escrow will be invested in. So they're gonna lock in not only the bond rates, but also the escrow earnings rate. So come October 30th or soon thereafter, the next day, all of this will be buttoned up. Now, it might not close until November 13th or 15th or something, but as of October 30th, everything will be quantified. Page 3 just shows you a little bit of a progression since we've been talking about this, and we're going to continue to add to this as we go. Column B is where we were, I think, when we first discussed it. We were at 17% and 8.6 million. The next time I think we talked, we had seen rates move higher, savings were down, still pretty solid at 15%. And as of yesterday, we've seen rates come back down. So rates are up and down, a decent amount of volatility based on what you're hearing in the economy and the news and other factors, but still very solid. So we'll keep adding to this. Every time we update it, we'll make sure everybody has it. So for instance, Doug, I think this version you have for your agenda packet for your meeting next Tuesday. Yeah, we might update it again on Monday just so people know where are we, and then Shenandoah County will be back to your board on Thursday afternoon. We'll update it again, and then Rappahannock would be the following Monday, the 7th, that afternoon. And so I guess the plan is to for the RSW board to consider a resolution today, and then in this order: Warren County Tuesday, Shenandoah County Thursday, and Rappahannock the following Tuesday. Monday, 7th. And if that were all to take place, that would be the final approval. I think you've seen the rest of this. It's just talking about the sensitivity, like on page 4, the sensitivity of the savings if we see under columns C and D, what happens if interest rates move up by 10 basis points or down by 10 basis points. It's just a sensitivity analysis. And then we had also talked about columns E and F, which is, one option is to wait, right? And that was the option that was chosen back in 2017. But one option today is to wait. And so we reran this. What happens if we do this transaction in 2021 under column E? If rates are exactly where they are today, you stand to earn or recognize about $10 million of savings. But if rates go up by more than 1/4%, you would have been better off doing it now. Likewise, we could wait until the actual call date. And if it would then be tax exempt because it's no longer an advance refunding. If rates were exactly where they are today, you could recognize up to 12 million, but there's about a 90 basis point movement for break even. So this was a topic of discussion at Shenandoah County the other night, and the reality is not until 2043, when you look backwards and say what would have been the best time to do this, you literally could do this deal every working day of the year until 2043, in theory, right? There is no real limitation as to when you can enter the market. It's just a question of how much savings are you going to get at that point in time, and could you have done better by waiting? So for that reason, I think one of the key points for everybody in the resolutions is to establish, what's our minimum threshold. I think the meeting the other night went well. It was a lot of good questions. I didn't pick up on any strong opinions one way or the other.
They were tired, Ted.
They were tired. I was late on the agenda, and they had a lot of math on the
They
prior
already had a lot
item.
of math by the time you used it.
Math and a few other things.
Was there
So
discussion about the minimum NPV?
No.
there was a reference to, hey, back when we were doing this, the 7% is about where we were. Maybe it had been about 7.5%, but that was it. And I did explain, and I think I'm right, Jesse. We have 4 approvals. We have to get 4 approvals. All 4 of them could have different savings thresholds, and VRA will follow the lead of the most restrictive.
Yeah, because the resolutions will say not less than.
That's right. And so if somebody does 5, 7, 8, 9, 9 will carry the day. So we're going to see the market move around. Bad news is good for this sort of thing in the economy and global economy and geopolitical whatever conversations are out there. So we'll update it as regularly as we can, particularly for the board meetings we'll be attending. I don't know, Jesse, is there anything you'd add on the process?
I don't think so. I mean, we did, I mean, The good of kind of having gone through this 2 years ago is we've done forms of, the resolutions and stuff, and it's just kind of a question of, everybody kind of getting together and coming to a consensus on, kind of what this minimum threshold is gonna be. But once we've got that, I mean, the rest of it can kind of go forward, just with those approvals.
And I know Warren County is considering something similar in their own name for VRA debt they have in their own name. I gather Shenandoah is as well.
No, I think we passed on
Okay.
that one. That net present value was, I think, 3%.
Okay.
Total savings over the life was $50,000 or $5,000 a year or something.
Okay, but it was the same basic concept,
Yes,
just
sir.
didn't rise to those. So they saw it twice
Well, no,
that
Ted, you
night.
didn't stay for that one. You got out of there.
I think Mandy had it, right?
Mandy had it. She absolutely did.
So I assume this is gonna be a pretty big offering.
Yes, if rates hold, not only will VRA have all the normal new money projects that are in their pool, there's a lot of these out there being discussed, and it could be quite large.
I mean, a lot of people didn't think we could be doing these sort of advanced refundings once all the tax stuff happened like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
But now there's this kind of window where taxable rates are and stuff,
Yep.
it's an opportunity that I don't think people thought.
Yeah,
would be
intuitively,
there.
you say, I'm paying off tax exempt debt with taxable debt just generally doesn't make sense. And Jesse's right, it's because everything is so low right now. Now, it would look better today if we could still do it on a tax exempt basis, but the tax legislation changed, so how long taxable and tax exempt rates will continue to sort of float in this relative level to one another, time will tell. We're a little more than 30 days out from the pricing. Other questions? And I guess we'll have, at the 2 o'clock, we'll have, what, 3
Yeah, and I
board
guess we're really
members?
gonna have to look for direction from the full authority. They won't come back together, will they? Unless we call a special meeting, and otherwise waiting for the localities, so.
Yeah, I think we should probably make a recommendation to.
Is the resolution in the afternoon packet, in the 2 o'clock packet?
I don't believe that it is, and I don't know why we couldn't at least agree upon it.
It should be, if there's not, I got
Yeah.
plenty of copies.
Yeah, there needs to be an action item to
I mean, we were in the 7 range previously, we were willing to go for it. I would think that would be the minimum that we would want to look at. It's just my gut
I
feeling.
didn't hear your number.
7 plus was where we were before, and we were willing to move forward with those.
So you guys don't have them.
Yeah, are we then, as this committee, going to make a recommendation relative to the resolution then?
That's my
what Doug is
suggestion.
suggesting.
And what's in there right now is a kind of a placeholder bracketed number of 7%, just because that was, kind of seemed to be the baseline of what we were talking about on our call. But that's, like I said, that's just kind of, seemed to be kind of the baseline of what we were talking
So,
about.
under that, page 5, you're looking at, after the first year, about between 150, 160,000 a year in savings. You look at the 5% and the 3%, I think that's where you're hedging your bet. There'll be opportunities to
Yeah, there's a
refi
yeah,
as we move forward. There's a certain point where if you look at, as we get closer to 22, that
Yeah, that's one of the challenges, is the 22.
Well, and there's a
But
subtlety.
with the net present value where it is today, or 24, it's
Right,
very
so,
attractive.
so there's a subtlety to this, and, the 2019 bonds, if we issue those, will have a 10-year no-call period. That's standard. But, I'm talking to Jesse, Peter did confirm that Arthur who's bond attorney to VRA, has said, come 2022, the call date on the 12s, you can at least consider doing another refunding on a tax exempt basis.
Yeah. As long
Now, it
as-
doesn't mean it'll work,
Yeah.
but it's a subtlety in the tax legislation, because if we do the 2019 deal, we now have taxable debt outstanding. That is a little bit of we can navigate the IRS regulations for tax exempt debt so that what the bond attorney has said is when we hit the original call date of the original bonds, which is 11/1 of 22,
And they're
If-
called, they have to be called, but yeah.
they have to have been
They
called.
have to be- Yeah, I mean, cause the notion is you don't want two series of tax exempts that are out at the same, that are in the market at the same time. So as long as you're paying those off, even if we have these taxables, as long as there's only one set of tax exempts out there, that's kind of all the IRS cares about.
And I guess the point is, if depending on how the market evolves, there will be opportunities to refund these again as early as the fall of 22. And if not then, presumably at some point down the road, it just remains to be seen. This isn't your only chance. It's a good chance, it's a good opportunity, but you're not burning an advance refunding opportunity.
On tax exempt, November 1st of 2022.
Right.
What's the pleasure of the committee relative to this?
Well, I'll just say that I relate to my board that I suggested to the two of you that, given Rappahannock's huge portion of the pie, we would defer to whatever you agreed to mutually, and I didn't get any pushback from my board.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And being the last potential approval,
Yeah.
that works.
Yeah,
well.
it works. And then, the number, like you said, whatever the highest number is approved by a board, that's what will go down and be the measure come October 30th.
Now, for you all, I want to make sure you're aware of this potential subtlety. We don't have to refund every single maturity from 23 to 42, okay? Right now we are. All of those are eligible to be refunded, and we've got every one of them in the transaction. But each one of them is generating a different level of savings. Some are better than others. So we might not be able to hit in theory, 9% savings with every maturity that's eligible. But if we run the analysis and we pull out the ones that are the most productive, we could hit 9% savings on a smaller transaction, smaller savings because it's a smaller transaction, but we're still actually hitting, we're affecting a refunding that would have 9% present value savings. It just would not necessarily include every maturity. And generally speaking, if we're in that environment, we're dropping the earlier maturities because they're less productive, and we're keeping the longer maturities in because they're more productive.
We talked about that in 17, at least at the county level.
So I didn't mention that the other night, Evan, I probably should have, but you can have a 9% present value savings refunding that includes every maturity or only some maturities, depending on the market environment.
And the benefit of doing that is the opportunity to refund sooner for those that you didn't this time around.
Yeah, if you left some out, you could turn around the next day or the next month or the next 6,
At
8
least on VRA's schedule,
on VRA schedule and pick up the remainder. And we
twice a year,
That's right, 3 times.
3 times.
You just got a cost of issuance.
Yeah, and
Correct.
Yeah.
3 localities and an authority board.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't wanna, I'm hopeful that we don't have to go down that path.
Sure.
That we can maintain this as a little more straightforward. Let's do all what we call the callable bonds, but
Well,
that is a subtlety.
So I would
to be aware
ask,
of.
is the resolution, the provided resolutions, are they clear relative to that and the 7% listed?
It is establishing, I think, Jesse, a not to exceed par amount, which purposely includes everything
Everything.
and cushion.
Yep.
And then it will have a not to be below savings percentage, but it is not specifying what bonds
That's right.
are in or out.
I mean, we would just say is in the aggregate, it has to meet whatever our target is gonna be. We could be more specific and say,
Well, I think
only if it's everything that's callable. That is something that we could put in there if that's what folks want. But, or we could just kind of go for a higher number and,
flexible.
I like a higher number. I don't, there's a country euphemism of herding hands with two in the bush, and so I wouldn't wanna do anything to not have my partner jurisdictions be able to have savings. I think the issue for Shenandoah in 2017, and Ted, I teed you play golf? I teed up that question.
Not very well.
Shenandoah, I don't either, but
I don't think I played it very well that night either.
the question about negative arbitrage and sort of how that was perceived as you're borrowing $2 additional million to save over time $2 additional million. You answered the question. I did that on purpose.
I don't understand.
Help us out. You know, 7 seems to sort of put us back to that point where, at the 7%, I'm sorry. I believe it's a $4 million savings over time. I'm not correct.
3.8.
3.8, and you're borrowing an additional 3.8. Again, you still have actual realized savings
Right.
as a result of the.
And yeah, the one gentleman who in 17 had dug into this quite a bit, I mean, he was following along, I think, on all of that. And again, I didn't get a sense that he felt this was more of the same. I got a sense that this was viewed as a
Better deal.
better opportunity.
We don't have any debt policies or anything like that. It would limit the number if it's growing.
No. No.
We're not like a town that has.
Right,
tax on
right.
it.
No policy.
We've adopted some financial policy that says.
I'm aware of. That's a good question.
You look at the number, I think you don't want to be below 7. Obviously,
Yeah.
you like to have 9 or up, but
Yeah, I was sort of thinking 10 or up, but maybe I don't certainly want to be in a position where, you know, Shenandoah would like savings as much as you two, certainly.
well, so Ted, they'll look back on that deal, the 17 deal, if it had been done, it would have been like a what, 7.8 or something like that?
Yeah, I think it was around that level. We did sort of a look back.
it's 8%. But you're right there. That will put you where you would have been, but
Yeah, I mean, 8 would be at a baseline better, definitely better than if you had done that deal.
Yep. And that's half of where we're at now with the current market.
Correct. And we would need,
Ted, what's your crystal ball say about what? Did you bring your crystal ball?
He does not talk about.
Keep forgetting that crystal ball, man, all these meetings, you never bring it.
you know, I know you're,
I-
it's just, I think we're gonna see a lot of volatility, and it's this treasury market is trading off of sort of the news of the day, you know, and that is, like I said, domestically, internationally, and other things that are going on, so. Those that put projections on paper, and there are a few firms that do, they're at least willing to do that, see rates continuing to go down.
Well, we're realizing we're, on the 24th, we're looking at 17% net present value, right?
Right.
That's 10% above where our resolution at 7% would even be. 7 still represents real savings to all of us. I think I can support 7. I don't know what necessarily Shenandoah's board will feel like, or even what the remaining authority members might feel about it.
Yeah, and to go, if we're on page 5, to go from column B to column E, we've got a 75 basis points movement. I mean, that is a lot. Not to say it's unprecedented in a 30-day window, but it would be a significant market movement up.
Especially when the Fed just moved down.
When the Fed moved down, and there's just a lot of uncertainty about what's going on in the economy, because all of that uncertainty drives people to buy safe assets like treasuries, and the more people that are buying them, the yield's going lower, and the better your savings do.
Mr. Stanley, would you like to make a motion?
If you were comfortable at the 7, I can go with that. I'll make a motion that we make a recommendation to the full authority board to move forward with the resolution with the threshold of a minimum of net present value savings of 7%.
I'll second your motion. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Go through this again, Ted.
Okay.
I should practice. Make sure.
How many more, are likely to come?
I'll probably have both of mine, so maybe 2 more.
I believe I'll have
I
one,
can- I
but
can-
the version in the
Yeah.
packet is the same.
It's dated the 19th.
I know I updated it
Oh,
yesterday.
the ones that were printed over there.
Stephanie,
Oh,
you
oh,
got
yeah.
one of yours.
I see.
We're all right, we're good.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Ted.
Wait, so many people turning theirs back in.
Just for
Keep in mind, he's changing, he's getting better.
Yeah, only updated.
Only send me the ones that look better. Okay, item number 6 on our agenda is request for proposals, contract award, pharmaceutical services, dental services.
So I'll start with the pharmaceutical services contract. Our current contract for pharmaceutical services is with Westwood Pharmacy, and it is set to expire on October 1st of 2019. Due to the pending expiration, we sent out a request for proposals for the services. Went out in June, they were due in July. At which time we had received 5 submissions to the proposal. We reviewed all of the proposals, and we actually interviewed all 5 of those that had submitted. And after our review of the proposals and the interviews, we've decided that the best candidate for award of the new contract will continue to be Westwood Pharmacy. This decision was made on many factors, including their qualifications, their experience, our experience with them, and their cost proposal. Westwood Pharmacy's current cost proposal is that all prescriptions, both brand name and generic, will be billed to us at acquisition cost plus a dispensing fee of $2.50 per prescription. Our current price model with them is the average wholesale price minus a percentage. And we discussed it with all of the people who have submitted, and a lot of people are going away from that pricing model and going to an acquisition cost plus a dispensing fee.
How is that audited? And how do you know what their acquisition cost is?
That's a good question.
And I'm no expert in this, but in the research that I've done, there are firms that track what acquisition costs are, and you can be a member to those if you're a big enough player. Of course, we're not a big enough player to even be a member to know what those costs are, so you kind of just have to trust what they're telling you. And that's again why we interviewed all 5. One, this is one of our largest expenses in our budget, so we wanted to make sure we were looking at every vendor we could to see what's out there. Is there a way to save money from where we are now? So.
And they all structured their responses to you in the same way. This is how.
Yes, they did. And in one of our references that we referred to with Westwood specifically, they had a contract with Westwood that was on the AWP model and switched to a cost model, and they recognized cost savings changing the pricing models with Westwood. So we would like to request the approval of the authority board, if you all would like to make a recommendation to award the contract for pharmaceutical services to Westwood. It would be a 1-year contract starting October 1st, and it would include the option of extending the contract for 2 additional 1-year terms, which is how our original contract with them.
How much are we spending a year currently?
It's usually in the 20,000 range, monthly, and then
What is it under the materials and supplies line, 6,000? One of those
no,
categories, or is it?
pharmaceutical
Should
is
have its own line.
3112.
Okay, sorry, wrong page.
Should be like 2.
There it is, yes, I see it, okay.
Were they the lowest cost? Was that I assume that was one factor in the selection.
Yes, they were not necessarily the lowest cost. They were very close to the lowest cost. And because they were our incumbent and just some of the services that they provide in difference to the others, everybody was in the relatively the same ballpark on cost. There were a couple of outliers that were really high, but
So some of the factors is how quickly can you get the medication to us?
Yep.
What's your track record in Virginia? There's a lot of things that were used to score them out.
Yep.
So the ones that might have been lower, they couldn't come online fast enough, or they couldn't get us the medication under the same guidelines that we've been
And the
accustomed to.
differential was not worth the risk of a
No.
known commodity.
Right.
No, we tested a couple of it and it was like $700 a month difference. Like it was nothing,
Okay.
nothing drastic difference wise in cost.
So I'll make a motion, we approve or recommend the approval of a contract with Westwood effective 10/1 with the 2 one-year options as outlined.
I'll second, just a quick discussion of that. What was the term of the currently expiring contract?
It was the exact same. It began
One
October
with
1,
two.
2016. It was a
Okay.
one-year term with two.
So you would
two-
extend it as
Yes,
much
we
as
had
possible?
extended it to 2
Okay.
years.
Why only 3 years?
Under procurement, that's
I'm not sure, sir. That's
still
what it was
allowable
before.
to do that, correct? With the extension.
You can do 5 years, right, total?
Yeah, there's no limit in the law as to how many years you could do. Typically, I have 7 years is
Oh, okay.
probably
I thought it was
the
limited.
realm
I
of
just
the
based it off what the
outlier,
previous one
but
was.
this is fine, and there is
Yeah.
a clause in there too about a 30-day termination for convenience clause in case.
And a lot can happen in
And
3
and
years.
you've reviewed the,
I have, yes.
Okay, we have a motion to recommend approval of Westwood Pharmaceutical Services, I said it right, to the full authority board, and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, dental services.
And so similarly, our dental services contract is also set to expire on the 1st of October. And we sent this out as a request for proposal and we received one submission, which is our current vendor, Rappahannock Creative Healthcare, which they've done fine. He did propose the cost for services will be $36,000 annually based on this new contract. The current cost on his contract is $30,000, but our inmate population has significantly increased, which is why there's the $6,000 annual increase in cost that he proposed. This contract would be the same contract term. It would begin for 1 year on October 1st, 2019, with the option of extending for 2 additional years.
Does it have a, go ahead, please.
I'm gonna ask the same
You
question.
probably are.
Well, do you have an opportunity, does he have an opportunity to request an increase in the intervening
exactly my
years?
question.
They do, under the, both the dental and the medical
Is
contract.
that fixed to a CPI or
It
something like
is,
that?
it
Okay,
is.
exactly my question. Thank you. I'm glad we not only look like we accepted the beard, but also. Okay. Any more questions for Stephanie? Do I have a motion?
So
Recommend. Mr. Curry, a second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, item number 7, transportation ban discussion.
This was again, kind of in this meeting, just a reminder that we'd spoken about at the last meeting, and I think the recommendation was, I think the motion was gonna be made to the full authority to move forward with that increase. Basically taking the revenue from or taking the additional money I needed for the purchase out of the inmate revenue that we're generating from contract beds.
Are you gonna cover that in the full authority?
I can,
To just explain?
yeah, I
Well,
mean,
do you remember what the amount was?
30,000,
Additional.
yeah.
That was an additional appropriation, right?
Correct. If you go back to your meeting minutes, which are in the packet, that piece is in there, so that's all I'm gonna refer
I seem to
to.
think I have to do some type of update, I'm gonna say, hey Russ, how about you do that?
Yeah.
So I'll just read what's from
But I think
that.
it's healthy for the full authority board also to understand the cost of that band increase had to do with outfitting the internal parts of it and not the actual physical band.
Right.
Okay. Item number 8, contract bed rental discussion. This was,
Mary, correct me, I believe this was was brought up at the last full board meeting, to talk about, I guess, where our numbers are, staff versus contract beds, so,
we covered that in our last FMP.
I did. And I've
Cover
got
similar again.
same
Okay.
You've
information.
updated your chart to track both employees and population, so that's helpful, I think.
Right,
You can-
so,
And remind me, it was like 1.1 hours additional overtime.
for mandatory overtime, it was 1.53 hours a person per pay period for the entire year. So for the average person, it was 40 hours of mandatory overtime through the entire year. Total overtime, it was 57 hours per person. Because, we have unknowns of hospital duty, things like that, which no matter what our staffing is, it's gonna occur. So even with total overtime, it was 57 hours per person for the year, which broke down to 2.19 hours per pay period per person per year.
Are there any other outstanding issues for our committee? Here's still our next meeting's October 24th. Ready for adjournment?
So move.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, we are adjourned.